Hi, hi, hi. Oh my gosh, so great to see all of you. Welcome to the Mango Publishing Heart Wisdom panel. I'm Sherry Richert Belul, author of Say It Now, 33 Creative Ways to Say I Love You to the most important people in your life. And oh my goodness, oh my goodness, oh my goodness, today we have Dawna Markova and Brenda Knight. And we are talking kindness. We're going to be taking some fresh looks at kindness. We're going to be really looking at, where we are in the world. And just a quick shout out to Brenda, because the reason that we're doing these Heart Wisdom panels at all is that when the pandemic started, she and I got together and started doing these panels. And I feel like this has been the biggest kindness to myself and hopefully to people who have been here, to get to meet the amazing authors of Mango Publishing and to get to hear so much kindness, so much compassion. And we all know that, right? The Mango books are just filled with kindness. And so I'm super grateful. And Brenda, thanks for coming on as a guest today.
My pleasure.
So before I have Dawna and Brenda officially introduce themselves, I was going back through some of their books that I really love, and I pulled just two short quotes I wanted to share as a way of opening our circle today. The first one is from Dawna's book, Living a Loved Life. In these dark and fragmented Humpty Dumpty times, at a moment in history when possibility seems eclipsed, and all the king's horses and all the king's men have convinced so many people that they can't and don't make a difference, I feel a great sorrow that so much innate talent and valuable life experience is undiscovered, untapped, and unloved. I long to inspire you who are reading these words to search for the reservoir of wisdom and capacity within you, waiting to be discovered and shared with the rest of us. I know it is exactly the glue that can connect and help us create a possible world for those who will follow. Thank you, Dawna. So beautiful. Creating a world for those who follow. Talk about kindness. And this is from Brenda's book, Random Acts of Kindness. Make kindness a calling. All of us will hear the call if we listen carefully. It is the sound of our hearts pushing us to love one another, to treat each other with love and respect, to act with generosity and compassion. And each of us must find our own way of responding. Thank you, Brenda.
Mm-hmm.
I just am so happy to have both of you here. And we'll start like we always do. And Dawna, if it's okay, I'll have you begin with an introduction of, whatever you want to share about who you are, the beautiful work you do in the world. And I have one special question for each of you to answer as you're introducing yourself, which is, how do you find kindness in yourself moment to moment?
I'm writing it down.
Okay.
I don't have to write it down.
I can remind you.
It's a delicious time to be with you all. So I'm just enjoying your faces, and I will probably never see you again. And so I'm going to make sure I don't miss your faces and the sounds of your voice when you're speaking. So I'm doing what I call memorizing the moment. And my upbringing taught me to go very quickly. And so I went through a lot of my life very quickly. And I graduated high school at 15, and I was done with college at 18, and keep going, go faster, go faster, go faster. And then I had cancer for the first time. My body was cancering, and for the first time. And suddenly everything I knew was turned upside down. And I had to learn about the other side of everything. And so understanding the other side of everything has been the way I have learned to love my life. My body has cancered 7, 8 times. In less than a month, I'm going to have lived 80 years on the earth, or I have lived 79 years, and I'll be living, I can never get that straight. So this idea of understanding that everything has its other side. The physicist Niels Bohr called it a balancing structure. And he said the opposite of a truth is a lie. An ordinary truth, it's an ordinary lie, but the opposite of a profound truth is another profound truth. And so we are so surrounded these days by, the topic of lying and political lying. And so there are also profound truths that we need to search and live. And when Random Acts of Kindness first came out, people talked about it in a way that I call whipped cream over garbage. It was always, we will ignore the bad stuff and let's just all smile and be happy. And but that's not what Niels Bohr was talking about. That's not what my life has taught me. What it's taught me is that kindness isn't something you have or you don't have. It's something you do. And I love living in verbs rather than nouns. So this whole living on both sides of profound truths that balance each other has been an essential part of how I continually am healing my own life and contributing to the lives of other people. I stopped in the middle of the air because there are no words in my head anymore. So I said to God, I hope I gave you what you asked me for. I can't remember.
Dawna, you always give us way more than we ask for. You always, I thank you so much for the poetry of who you are. And I especially want to underscore what you just said about the, which thank you, because you'd mentioned that before we started, the whipped cream over garbage and really like, the balancing. And I hope you'll say more as we go on today. Yeah. Yes. And also thank you for kindness is a verb. Appreciate that so much.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. And Dawna, I know you have so many books. I think Bree has a few of the different links she'll be putting in the chat as we go along today. So thank you.
Yes,
Thank
my delight.
Ms. Brenda, publisher of Mango. Hello, hello.
Hello. Well, I could listen to Dawna Markova all day, and that was perfect what you said, Sherry. The poetry of who she is, and it's profound and beautiful, and will make you stop and think, and then inspire you. So I'm going to talk less so we can hear a lot more of Dawna Markova. But what I was thinking about, who I am, which is something that I think is often forgotten, which is that I'm like a farm girl. I'm from the country, and so I came from the simplest possible origins. And at the time, I was like, oh, it's not cool to live in the sticks, on a dirt road. And as a teen girl, I was all very sullen because I wanted to be more sophisticated, whatever that meant. But over the years, I've really come to be so grateful for my humble origins. And part of what I learned, just by from toddlerhood to adulthood, was the simple kindness of neighbors. Neighbors hearing that somebody was ill and bringing covered dishes and saying we'll cover all the meals for the next month. You don't have to worry about that. You just take care of your husband or your kid or whatever it was, and offering food. And my mom told me of being a little kid in the Depression, and how people they would come over and bring the crop of apples or corn or whatever, and they were keeping each other alive through kindness. And so that is just something that I sort of just the older I get, the more deeply grateful I am for having started out in the world that way. And I just think, I think there's the sort of like country kindness that I described, and there's also like kick-ass in your face kindness. And among my many fantasies is that maybe one day Dawna Markova will write a book on kick-ass kindness or something, because I think that, like she said, like there's sort of like the soft, fluffy idea of being kind and random acts of kindness, but sometimes kindness is like as tough as it comes. And like, I think that the world we're living in now, we need every kind of kindness, but maybe extra doses of the in your face, hard ass kindness.
Oh my goodness, I love where this is going already. I love this because I was thinking, gosh, and I didn't call it like what you just, I think you said soft kindness, but I was thinking there's so much more to be said, right? There's so much about, I love it. I love everything, Brenda, that you were saying about that country kindness. And also it's so beautiful. You said, I had to write it down, keeping each other alive through kindness. And that really jumped out at me.
Mhm.
But it's such a broad topic, and I know you two have some really fresh looks at it. So let's ping pong back to Dawna and see, is there anything dropping in that you want to respond?
Yeah, we'll see what comes out. I'm still smelling apple pie. I never knew this about Brenda. All the years I've known you, I don't know how long I've known you, but I've never heard you describe yourself or anyone describe you as a farm girl. And I went, yes. and I haven't smelled you in a long time. That's a weird thing to say, but I haven't smelled you in a long time. And smell belongs to my unconscious mind. And that is the smell I have of you, either a bread that's just baking or of an apple pie. So I'm, it's like, oh, good. Now I understand. I said earlier before we all got together that this week has been challenging me in a lot of ways around my values. And when I strung the challenges all together, I realized that's what it was about. So my husband's youngest sister is spending a week with us, and she did something yesterday unknowingly. Well, she knew it, that destroyed 3 weeks of my work. And I said, did anybody do this thing? And she went, no, I didn't do it. I had nothing to do with it. And I knew she was lying. And I thought, she's here for a week. We haven't seen her in 7 years. I understand that in their family structure, her father sexually abused her 2 older sisters. And the norm was always, we don't speak of it. It was a conspiracy of silence. They don't apologize and they don't speak of it. And so I was in this place of, so I'm living with this still after 45 years. This is still in my world. So what do I do now? What do I do about this now? And I'm still living in that question. And so for me, this always to my mind, my teachers come, and I think of Maya Angelou, who actually was part of the inspiration for Random Acts of Kindness. And I heard her give this fierce and loving both speech that was, I have a quote that's on my computer all the time. Lift up your eyes upon this day breaking for you. Give birth again to the dream. Women, children, men, take it into the palms of your hands, mold it into the shape of your most private need. Sculpt it into the image of your most public self. Lift up your heart. Each new hour holds new chances for a new beginning. And so I am aware of that option right now. And I am aware of, in my polite mind, I go, well, just don't say anything. Let's just put whipped cream over this. She's going to be leaving in a day. And in my fierce heart, I'm going, that's not what I need to do. I haven't decided what I need to do. So I'm at this, what is a way I can both be kind to her and be kind to myself, and I can be loyal to my values. And oftentimes the one that I leave out of the formula is being kind to myself. And, disrespecting all the work that I put into those 3 weeks. And so that's why it's important for me to represent that the whole random acts of kindness, which I view as one of our culture's lifting forces. And each of our lives has lifting forces. And our lives collectively have lifting. There are people that have been lifting forces. It's moments like this that we need a lifting force when there's so much going on around us that calls us to our values and calls us to speak out on the random acts of violence as well as the random acts of kindness. I mean, January 6th, certainly that was, we're being called. So I appreciate the opportunity to do this today, and also to acknowledge that this is not easy. Not, at least for me, it's not easy.
I have a question for you, Dawna.
Yeah.
Is there any way this woman could help you restore, recreate, make up any of the work you lost?
I've thought about that. And I'm still thinking about that.
Okay.
And what I asked her, she's a master pie maker. So I said, I won't say her name, Rhonda, I'll call her. I said, Rhonda, would you make us an apple pie? And I thought that would satisfy me. Oh, I'd love to. So she's doing that. Maybe that's why you smell like fresh baked goods to me. I don't know. But anyway, but that hasn't settled my heart. So I'm still just living with it. And it's a really good question.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think, when people talk about random acts of kindness, what they leave out is when we started this, the point of doing random acts of kindness was equally as important as receiving random acts of kindness. And I was teaching what do we call? We used to call it the study group. It was a training group of social workers and psychotherapists. And so I began the conversation with them, having just heard about it. And everybody was full of stories about the random acts of kindness that people had done for them and how good it felt and how wonderful it was. But nobody was talking about the random acts of kindness that they did that were really random. And my antidepressant is to go and somebody gave us a cake that I can't eat. So I left it on the doorstep of a neighbor who I haven't even said hello to. They're so far away from us. But I just left this big cake covered with flowers. They'll never know who it was from. But I went away feeling, yes, that Maya Angelou talked about it, that yeasting in my heart from having done truly random acts of kindness when no one knows it's you. That's a really important part. And that makes it feel much better than the random acts of kindness that I think to do. So that I want to put a plug in for randomness.
I love
I'm
that.
surprised. I have the most random mind in the universe, I'm sure. Yeah.
That just reminded me, because earlier this week, I have a poet friend. We do something called the Secret Agents of Change. Yeah. And so people go out and do things out in the world that are truly random acts of kindness. And it's so, you're right, like the delight in the randomness and the anonymity of it all is so beautiful. Brenda, did you want to add anything to that particular piece or anything else that Dawna just said?
Sure. I always like to say, and don't forget about the senseless acts of beauty, because like that's part of the, the incantation, if you will, random acts of kindness, the senseless acts of beauty. And I think we need way more of those in the world. And so I love that. I think actually we start off every Heart Wisdom panel with a very sensible tribute to beauty. And I love that we do that, because I think that like we're so busy and we're like, pulled in several different directions all the time, no matter who you are. I know you are too busy. And so it's very grounding, but it also, we literally aren't like stopping to smell the roses, or the apple pies. Like we're just racing through. Even during the pandemic, like people were crazy busy. I remember thinking like, oh, we get to have contemplative time, mindfulness, like time, but like everybody I knew, like even if they couldn't leave the house, were like insanely busy. So I think that like the kindness, and then its counterpart, like the sort of random, unexpected beauty, like spotting that is also maybe a way to be kind to yourself, and then a way to like remember that we live on a beautiful planet.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Brenda, that's so great, because as you often do, one of the questions that I had was, I wanted to know from you guys how we practice, right? How do we practice finding and being kindness? And I believe you just answered that, at least in one way, right? By slowing down and noticing, really slowing down and noticing. Are there other things that might come to mind for you both about the practice of kindness?
Well, I'll share with you a laboratory question that you can think with me, be my thinking partners. So I said this week for me has been about values. And we have two friends who have been our dome during the, whatever you don't call it dome, but anyway, our pod during the pandemic. And there are four of us all together. So two other pairs and Andy and I. And we took Andy's sister to a restaurant with one of the other pairs, and they had two visitors also, because everybody's coming to Maui now because of the numbers dropping. And the three men sat together. They pulled Andy, the two men, to sit with them. And they proceeded to tell one after another, make these snide, jabbing comments about women, and two women. And I'm sitting there and I'm looking at the other two women, nobody's saying anything. And I finally said, this is really uncomfortable to me. And one of the men said to me, there you go again. Oh, we have to be quiet. We have to be careful around women's lib. And I, of course, wanted to choke on my first impulse. My hands were trying to figure out which way I would put them around his throat. But I didn't. I got up to go to the bathroom because that was kinder to me and certainly was kinder to him. And on my way to the bathroom, I kept thinking of all the quick little nasty things I could say back. Then while I was in the bathroom and I locked the door, I started thinking of all the ways I could enlist his better parts, and I could help him learn. And then I left the little cubicle and I came back and I wanted to choke him again. And I sat down at the table, and they said, I sat down and they immediately started, oh, there she is again. Now we have to be careful of what we say. And the other guy started talking about the Bohemian Grove. And I used to live in California, and I know what the Bohemian Grove is, and thousands of men who are all Republicans, la, la, la. And they're all, they're doing that with each other. And I'm just watching my hands. So I got up again. I said, I have to go to the bathroom again. Went to the bathroom 5 times. in that one dinner in this beautiful restaurant, I went to the bathroom. And one of them said, "You must have a bladder infection." And I said, "It could be because I've been pissed off a lot recently, particularly today, particularly tonight. Maybe I do have a bladder infection." And we came home. That was the kindest way I had of responding. So the why I need your help about thinking about this is we got invited by the other friends in our dome pod to a dinner, and guess who they're inviting? They're inviting those same two men in those same two couples, and we're going with Andy's sister, and it's her last night here. So help me. I think, besides going back and forth to the bathroom, of how can I be in this situation in a way that is both fiercely kind to myself and what I know to be true, and is kind in how I relate to these two gentlemen. Nothing small for the day, just a little elephant shit that we could think about. Anybody have any ideas? I'll take any of them.
Well, my mind was going to the Bohemian Grove because one of my good friends is a high-powered attorney in San Francisco, and he's hooked in with the power brokers and things like that. He himself is like even more liberal than I am, and even like more sort of a good-natured hippie than I am. But he goes every year and like just sort of like hangs out and like observes and everything. And he told me a story about how like that Obama had just been elected, and basically, the denizens of Bohemian Grove were like freaking out about it and actually like, saying some nasty things. And that one of their, I think it was somebody who was like Bush, like not one of the Bush presidents, but like somebody like a relative or someone in that or cadre, like actually took them all on and made this beautiful defense of Barack Obama, and like saying like it's their duty to like give him a chance and like allow this big transition to happen. And and basically they all like sort of were sheepishly admitted that they were just being churls and lame, and they were like, you're right, like he deserves a chance. And that actually like my friend said that he felt like it was a pivotal moment actually that enabled Obama to have a successful president as he did. Like this, like, I mean, they were like drinking, God only knows what they're doing at the Bohemian Grove. They are partying down, right? And like just all like, celebrating their republicanism or whatever. But I thought that was a kick-ass kindness that like one of the Bushies, if you will, did to like have Barack Obama's back and say like, give him a chance. Like, it's your duty as a patriot, as an American to do it. And that like, they admitted that he was correct, and some of them went on to become pretty decent supporters of him. So there's a Bohemian Grove act of kindness.
Yeah.
And if you want names, I can come back to names.
Thank you, Brenda. I would love to hear if other people, I love that Dawna presented it as a lab for all of us. I mean, why not practice, right? Real time.
Mm-hmm.
Does anybody else have thoughts on what Dawna has asked us? Ms. Rachel?
There's a few things I do when I'm in those kind of situations with uncomfortable people, or people I'm uncomfortable with. One of them is I practice, for my self-care, I practice my deep breathing and remember that my thoughts are my choice. And so I might try to think of things to be grateful for. I mean, when I was in an abusive relationship, I wrote down 3 things I was grateful for about him every day,
Mhm,
just because that's what's coming out of me.
mhm.
So it helped me just to not take myself down that viral hamster wheel spinning ugliness, you know, because that's what was coming from me if I let my thoughts go there.
Yeah.
So that's a couple of the things that I would do if I'm in social situations with people I'm uncomfortable with. I try to remind myself that I'm projecting out my energy, and whatever I'm projecting out is going to come back, and then see what conversations that brings up and what that creates. And I have fun with it so that I'm not focusing on that. If that makes any sense, I'm not focusing on the person. I'm just focusing on what I can control, what I can like see with my,
That's very,
energy that I'm putting out.
yeah,
So
that's very helpful. That's
Okay.
very helpful.
Good.
Yeah, what it brings to mind is, this phrase evolutionary love, rather than revolutionary love. And I think about all the choices that I tend to not think about. And when you were talking, I have a lot of revolutionary blood in my history and my lineage. But what came to mind when you were talking is, well, let's take them apart. There's 2 meanings to the word take them apart. Let's take them apart, which I can easily do. But I also can ask one of them to go for a walk outside with me. And so I take apart this kind of domineering, unspoken conspiracy that they get into. And I can take one apart and have a conversation about the effect of the words on me. I can do that. And your words help me remember that I can do that. Yeah. That's helpful. Any other ideas? I'll take anything you got. Good, bad, or ugly.
Wendy.
Hi, Dawna.
Hi.
So I do have some experience with this because I'm an elected official in my town. So I'm basically elected for people to get really angry and frustrated at me.
Right.
And I've learned that in some ways, if you just kind of let them verbally vomit, but literally, mentally, and try to almost energetically put up a boundary in between you.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, there's times when I've gone into really contentious council meetings and surrounded myself with like a bubble of light. I know it sounds a little ooby groovy, but it totally works. But just to remind yourself, you have permission to have boundaries.
Yeah.
And there is nothing wrong with that. That is a healthy way of being in this world.
Yeah.
But to finish my thought, if you just let people have their say and just kind of get out what they need to get out, and you just don't react and just say,
Right.
Okay.
Thank
Suddenly
you for sharing.
all the power, it truly takes all the power away from them.
Yeah.
That sort of thing, it tries to get, an equal reaction out of you. And if you don't give it to them, they have no power in the situation.
Right.
I found that to be very effective with people who yell at me.
What's coming to me as you're speaking is who stands behind me. So I have some remarkable teachers. I studied with a man named Milton Erickson for 27 years, who was a master of hypnotherapy. I studied with a man, Aikido, which is dedicated to bringing harmony and between forces in opposition. But I never thought until you spoke of not a barrier in front of me or a boundary in front, but what if I were sitting there with a conscious awareness of all my teachers behind me who were masters at this? I wonder how I would respond differently. And that's an amazing gift. Thank you for that. That is an act of kindness.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, that was wonderful. Thank you, Wendy. And Donna, you just reminded me of something that I've forgotten that I used to do a lot, particularly like if I got cut off in traffic or something that would bring up a lot of anger, is I would pretend that my spiritual teacher was sitting in the car with me. Right. Like, and it immediately, like it changed everything for me. And I love that you've just brought in this idea of sitting them at the table with us.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
With Milton Erickson, he was so important to me. And I went, if none of you know about Milton Erickson, there's a book called My Voice Will Go With You, which it's a wonderful book. Anyway, so I'd commute back and forth from New York or as a graduate student to Phoenix once a month. That's what a learning junkie I am. And so after 27 years of doing that, eventually I flew. But after 27 years, I knew it was going to be, he's very old, and I knew it was going to be the last time I ever saw him. And I said, he had a sliding glass door outside of his studio. And he was fierce, and he was an act of kindness, including in his fierceness. So there was a sliding glass door, and I went out the sliding glass door, and I turned around and I said, Milton, what am I going to do without you? And that was very inappropriate at the time to say to your teacher. But it was what came out of my mouth. And he's sitting in a wheelchair because he had polio, and he's sliding the glass door closed. And he said, never create limitations where there are no limitations given. And I looked at him and I said, but Milton, it stunned me when he said that. It was like a haiku. And then he said, you will think when I'm dead, you will think that I'm gone, but I'm not gone. Anytime you need me, you call and I'll come, and you'll be the only one who will see me. And I will be standing in front of you. And you let me talk to that person or do something with that person. They won't know. Only you and I will know. But then you say whatever I say, you do whatever I just did, and we'll never tell them, will we? And his blue eyes sparkled, and he slid the door that closed the rest of the way. And that was the last thing he ever said to me. So I, Wendy, am going to put on top of what you told me, and Rachel on top of what you told me, and Milton is going to be there tonight. And we'll see what Milton does. And I won't know either what Milton does. You can never tell with Milton. So it'll be a surprise to me, which is the best kind of surprise. Yeah. My breath goes deeper. I really appreciate the quality of attention and that you each and all have given to this question. And I feel more possible in this particular moment. So
we need a follow-up next week so we can know what happens.
Well, if between now and any time you come up with an idea of how you would handle it, please send me an email. I'm serious. My name @gmail.com, because I can use all the help I can get. So I am grateful for that. Thank you.
And Dawna, what a kindness it is, the way that you invited us all into that with you. I love that, right? Because it's easy for us to, well, I'll speak for myself, easy for us to be like, oh, it's Dawna, right? It's Dawna, and you're going to impart all of your wisdom, which you do have a lot of wisdom and a lot of poetry and a lot of beauty to give to us. But what a gift of kindness and generosity to open it up to everyone in the way that you did. It was beautiful. Which I think goes.
I make your thanks welcome in me.
Oh.
Yeah.
I was just going to add to that. You really taught me something big right there. It was beautiful.
well, it was a very definite, selfish, random act of kindness. Because if I didn't share that with you, I would have been faking it for the whole rest of the time we're spending together. And I'm too old. I don't have that many hours left. So the hours that I have, I don't want to fake it. I don't want to fake it. Yeah.
Brenda, I'm curious if anything is coming up for you. I know there are a lot of different directions we can go. I know you both brought things to read. I know we had a conversation about the Olympics beforehand.
Well, yeah, that's where I was going to go.
Oh,
Actually.
good. Okay.
Yeah, I know I started out by telling people that, like, you know, not that many people know, but like a big part of me is that I'm a farm girl. Another big part of me is that I'm an obsessive figure skating fan and have been for years and years and years. When the Olympics are in North America, I will go. And so and I go see all of the figure skating and anything else that I can, and just sort of soak up that atmosphere, and I love it so much. So anyway, I been like sort of torn and thinking about like the big scandal that's happening now with the 15-year-old Russian figure skater who is like the pariah at the moment because like she had a doping positive, tested positive for doping. And the decision was that she could go ahead and skate, and like there's like a total uproar among skaters and skating fans, and skaters that I love are angry, and I see their point. Like they never did, any enhancing substances or anything like that. They just like practiced and worked really hard and, and got themselves to the Olympic. But I, what I was thinking about was that this young woman like didn't have agency over her own body. I mean, I felt like intuitively and like practically that I knew like the coaches and everyone would tell her, and this is what you're going to eat today, and this is what you're going to drink, and here's your vitamins or whatever. And that like she would have been like just told what to do. And so here she is, like, people are like, denigrating her left and right and super angry, and probably she's probably a fan of like many of these great figure skaters and athletes and Olympians, and to have that energy come at you when you're a young girl and like it wasn't your idea, you did what you were told. And the thing is as I said, I'm a big fan, so I've seen her, like, I saw her when she started last year, and she might be the best in the world. She probably doesn't even need any performance enhancing substances. And so I just thought she needs kindness, like, and I'm just going to send her kindness. And I also was just contemplating what it would be like to have that pressure. I mean, the skates this week are like the most important of her life. It's for Olympic medals, and she's been working probably like, 18 hours a day, like for, half of her young life. And so I just thought I'm going to radiate kindness towards her. So there's sort of like a counterintuitive kindness, like, like people that will never know her, like millions, perhaps even billions of people are aware of this scandal. And that I hope and I intend that doesn't scar her young life, that this experience doesn't scar her young life, and that somehow she finds the positive and the grace and like rises like a phoenix. I intend that, and I send her kindness because I don't think she's getting much from anywhere else.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you shared that, Brenda. It was something that you had mentioned before anyone else joined. And to me, it really spoke to, again, the breadth of the kinds of kindness that we can offer the world, right? Like, and what you're pointing to, we could do in all sorts of different contexts, right? Where we see that there's just someone that we can even just hold in our hearts and offer kindness to. And, and of course we could do so much more. We could write to them with kindness, but there's all sorts of things, speak like you're doing, speak in a crowd about kindness for this person, you know?
Mhm.
So thank you so much.
Yeah, and one other last, this just popped into my mind too. There's all kinds of remote acts of kindness you can do. One of the first, when I was first in publishing, Dr. Larry Dossey was a big author at the time. I think he still is, for Harper San Francisco, where I worked for a number of years at the beginning of my career. And he was a physician. And it was actually very controversial that he came out about praying for his patients. He didn't pray for them all. And of course, doctors, physicians are scientists. So he decided to do like a, scientific measurement of it. And so he did. And the patients that he prayed for recovered more quickly and better, and the ones he didn't, that were in the other test case and he didn't pray for them, they didn't thrive nearly as much. And so then he wrote a book about it, and it was like very controversial because people want their doctors to be scientists and clinicians, and they don't want any new age woo-woo, or at least then that's how they were. And so it came out like a thunderbolt. It was a big deal. And I just remembered thinking, like, again, like I pretty much rolled in from the sticks from the country, and I just remember thinking, he's a nice man, he's a kind man. But like there was a way where those were remote, not random, but remote acts of kindness.
Yeah.
There's all kinds we can do for people. Just send a kind thought. Like, people sent me many kind thoughts over the last couple of years, and I needed every single one. So thank you.
Well, and also to underscore, because I love the mail and I love sending things anonymously through the mail, right? I think that there is something beautiful about the skater, for instance. If we find a way to mail a letter and it's, from the world or from the universe, that I think that can go a long way. And back to Donna's point about, there's something about when it's sent anonymously and they really truly don't know, they could look at everyone in the world and think, gosh, maybe that person sent me this letter, and it, to me, it expands that kind of love.
And I think we can hold that and at the same time hold the balancing truth. There's a wonderful, I don't know if that's the right word, very powerful video that's on Amazon or Netflix about the Russian doping scandals and who it is in Russia that's doing it and why they're doing it and how they're doing it. And as the mother of a former Olympic athlete, I can tell you that the doctors who treat the young girls that are athletes and the Russians who are doping and that it is kind to say, this is not okay. This is not okay.
Mm-hmm.
And that is an act of kindness. That is a balancing truth that needs to be also named, because how long are we going to blame young women?
Right.
Instead of putting the light of truth where it belongs. The perpetrator needs to have the light of truth on them. And I didn't want to watch that program, and my son was here visiting and he said, I think this would be good to watch. And there it was just an hour of athletes and what happened to them and how they were used and how they continue to be used. And so that's kindness too. That's kindness to the whole, the greater whole.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well said.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Dawna, I love that you've brought us back to that place, right? A number of times, even in this short hour of the balancing.
Yeah.
And then also adding in, kindness to self, right? So all of it, and it is such a beautiful, beautiful balancing.
Yeah. And challenging. Duty is always challenging. Yeah.
I'm curious if anybody else who's here wanted to come in with a question for Dawna or Brenda, or just a comment, something that's coming up for you. Rachel.
One of the things I have to say, being in a part of a lot of these wisdom panels and listening to a lot of them, one of the things I noticed that you do is have Brenda talk about how she found a lot of these books, and her intuition is a kindness to humanity. I
Yeah.
mean, honestly, it is a kindness to humanity. I get chills when she speaks about it because, you know, it's just really amazing. And her heart, sorry, your heart, Brenda, I know you're right here. I'm touching you too. But I mean, teaching people that it's safe to trust our intuition, talk about an act of kindness.
Mhm.
And to show, I mean, what appears, you know, in these wisdom panels is a show of that. And
Well, that is so
I'm
sweet.
so grateful.
That's so sweet of you to say, and I love you for like, you know, stating it that way. But what I will say in response is that I follow my nose, and you know, I do like I do listen to my intuition. You know, we're not encouraged to do that in business, but I didn't know any better. You know what I mean? Like I rolled in off the hay wagon and I was like, well, you know, like use your common sense. But the theme that is true throughout all of my acquisitions is the book has to make it a better world. And if it's going to help make the world better, whether it's saving the planet or kindness to yourself, or, you know, a book about how you saved your own sanity by like running with your dog, like, you know, like one of our friends here did, like anything that is going to help the world, I'm here for it. So that's really the method to my madness. But thank you. You are very kind. It's kind to acknowledge people too. That I think that like something like 20 years ago, I was reading like a psychology book, like it wasn't one that I was publishing. It was one that I thought I needed to read for self-betterment. And it said, all people want is to be acknowledged. And if you acknowledge people like that, that is like you're just opening their heart and your brain. So I will bring it back to Dawna, and I wonder something positive you can acknowledge about those two gentlemen, dinner companions. Is there something that's good and true about them that can be acknowledged that will maybe like sort of let them drop that like sort of bitter anger, whatever it is they're dragging around. They're dragging around some burden, like, so maybe some acknowledgement of something really great about them could just cause that to fall away.
Mhm. Just as what's in my head. So I'll tell you what's in my head, and what's in my heart is they have excellent taste in wives. They have married two beautiful and wonderful, very quiet, very soft-spoken women. And that is what I can acknowledge about them for right now, to be truthful.
I think that sounds wonderful.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Brenda, just as you were speaking, I remembered something we used to do on the Heart Wisdom panels that maybe we could do today, because it is a way of acknowledging, which is, remember, we used to popcorn around, and anyone who wanted to, you didn't have to, but anyone who wanted to could give an acknowledgement of something that was beautiful that was said, or impactful, or that they would carry away as an intention.
Mm-hmm.
You guys game? Anybody game to play today? Can we? Because I think that was a beautiful way to acknowledge the circle. And
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
it emphasized how much of a safe space these Heart Wisdom panels are, and they really are. And it's all of you that come, and you, Sherry, and the Mango crew that, like, you know, make sure it happens. Like, so I mean, these, you know, I look forward to these every week. It's like my church, honestly, it is. So I'll toss that out there as, like, you know, an acknowledgement, like, to kick us off.
love it, Brenda. I'm going to go and follow you because I feel compelled to, because as always happens, when I'm looking at all of your faces, which I am right now, and thank you, I just see beauty, and I see people who are good-hearted and wanting to love better and wanting, like Brenda said, wanting to change the world in kind and loving ways and doing the best we all can. And that's my gift every week that you give me, your presence. So thank you. That is a kindness to show up for people.
And that's pretty much what I would say too, Sherry. I would echo exactly what you just said. So acknowledge everybody here and the love that's obviously between us all. So yes, so we just have to keep spreading that love every Wednesday, but also in between, every day from now until next Wednesday. We have to, not just on a Wednesday afternoon, but every second of every day if we can.
I want to acknowledge my curiosity that will not leave me alone. So I love my curiosity. In its best, it's wonder. And I have this wonder, Krishna, about what you are sitting in front of. Are those all record albums?
Yes, they are. I have a few thousand of them behind me.
Wow.
And they're all alphabetical. I know exactly where every record is from A to Z. And yes, I've had this, well, I've just loved vinyl records since I was a little kid, and have still kept it going while all my friends have got rid of theirs when technology kind of pushed them aside. I said, no, I'm keeping mine. And yes, here they all are. So you were right.
Krishna for years, and I would say that he's like a autodidact, like, incredible. And as a musicologist, really like a self-taught musicologist that I think just comes from his love of music. And then, but it's a pretty serious pursuit. And I have all kinds of like ideas of like things my friends could do. And like, I've always had a fantasy that like Krishna had like a radio show or a podcast or something where he just shared favorite records and then sort of told us about them, because he knows every detail and chapter and verse and backstories. And it's pretty fascinating. And then when you get to hear that and that lovely accent and voice of his, it's just sheer pleasure. So it's deliberate acts of extremely cool beauty.
Well, thank you, Brenda. I appreciate all of that.
Well,
but I do still make a lot of mixtapes, so that could be an act of kindness to send those out. So
what I want to say to you is that I'm very glad I asked. Music is one of the most important lifting forces in my life, and I remind myself every morning, my meditation, what are the lifting forces in my life? And music has always been a lifting force in my life. And I am married to a composer. So I'm going to tell him about you and about, your random intentional act of kindness to be collecting all of those record albums. And thank you for bringing your lifting force into my life. I could not resist asking, because it's like people talk about your aura. That's your aura. So thank you for your commitment. That's right.
He's a painter too. We'll save that for another
Okay.
wisdom.
All right.
That was also a beautiful display, at least for me, of how curiosity and genuine interest is a kindness, right? Like, that was wonderful for all, I'm projecting for all of us, at least it was for me to hear Krishna's response and to hear what came from that.
Yeah.
Did anybody else before we hop off? And I'm sorry, I know we're going a little bit over. I try to keep us on time, but I would just love to make sure there's space if anyone else wanted to share anything from today.
I mean, I'd like to wrap it up with something that happened, but I don't want to step on anyone else that might want to add in. I think I'll go ahead.
Okay.
So, so today, like we had a meeting with an author of a summer book, and it's Mark Krillinsky. I mean, he's one of the most beloved writers. He's a New York Times bestselling author. He has massive fans, and we're very lucky to be publishing him. And, you know, I've been a fan of his for a long time and love his style of writing, which is nonfiction, but he goes in really deep on subjects, you know, like salt or fish or cod or something like that. And you might think like, I don't know if that sounds that interesting, but the way he writes it, it's like, it's just brilliant and absorbing and fascinating. And also you learn a lot too. So, I mean, it's an honor to work with him. And so, you know, we go through our motions, like cover all the agenda items on the meeting and all this, and then plan the next meeting. And at the very end, like Mark Krillinsky, who's been published by, you know, Random House and all the big five, the big five publishing houses, he just said, as just a wrap up, he said, you know, this is the first time I've like been published by, you know, a small publishing house, like not the big five. And he said, it's pretty refreshing. All of you guys are so like positive and like nice. And, you know, he didn't say that like, you know, he was enjoying the publishing acts of kindness, but like, you know, I knew that he was. But what was so beautiful about it was that, you know, Chris McKinney, like the publisher, not that I'm the publisher, he's the CEO and founder, he got to hear it.
Yeah.
And like, I saw his like face just light up. I saw his heart lift. He was grinning like, you know, like a teenager. And like, it just did my heart so good to see him be acknowledged. Like I'm realizing we have like sort of an acknowledgement, like subtext to this whole thing, that like, that was just a joy to see. It was just a joy to see. And then it also reminded me that like, you know, Mango and Canary Press, like we are different. We are intentional, we're thoughtful, we treat our authors like people. And so I'd say that like, you know, I feel pretty proud and grateful to work for a publishing house that is fueled by kindness.
Yes.
Yes.
Hmm.
Yes.
Oh, perfect, Brenda. Perfect. Dawna, Brenda. Oh my goodness. I knew this was going to be amazing, but I just didn't have any idea where we would go. And it was so beautiful, so meaningful. Thank you. Thank you, Bree and Shelby, who are also here, and Krishna from Mango. And thank you to all of you who are here, our other authors and guests. This is amazing. Never forget what a kindness it is to show up in this way. Thank you. Come back. We're here.
Ahui ho. In Hawaiian, we say ahui ho. So that's until our spirits touch.
Oh.
So, ahui
Much
ho.
love.
Yeah.